And we're live. All right. It is the Bitcoin Live and Let Die show. That's the new name of the show. And if you would please share this with your friends, your followers, your subs, your email list. Just tell people about it. Get them over here. Participate in the chat. We'll have a great time. We'll talk about the Bitcoin and cryptoverse world and where it is, where it's going, and what it all means. I'll be looking at it from an investing point of view as well as a business point of view. We will also interject into that other markets, the normal stock market, the futures market, currencies, etc. I don't want to let go of that. This is a great opportunity to start talking about that as well. I'm glad everybody is showing up. Again, if you have any questions, join the chat, ask the questions. I'm going to be looking at the whole thing as being kind of a Q&A live chat, and I'm going to bring up topics that I found about Bitcoin and related topics. Probably the most interesting thing that I found today that I need to talk about is this this alliance between Bubba, that's right, Bill Clinton, and Ripple. Can you imagine that? Bill Clinton and Ripple? Now, I mean, that is the making for a Saturday Night Live sketch, I'm telling you. But of course, everyone on the left is going to treat this. I don't know how they're going to treat this. It's kind of interesting because this now brings in this kind of political component. And the way I'm looking at it, being a kind of a, very politically minded being, is that the Clintons are now looking for a new source of revenue, a new way to scam people, because the Clinton Foundation has all but shut down ever since Hillary lost the election, and she's been widely disgraced. And people are now seeing the Clintons for what they are, basically a crime syndicate. And now the crime syndicate, the biggest crime syndicate in the world, is getting involved with Ripple. Now, that should tell you something about Ripple. Let's see, who else is involved with Ripple? We got to find that out. Is Snoop Dogg? I think he may be involved there somehow, but it'd be interesting to find out what other famous people have been involved with Ripple. Who's going to be involved in this swell conference? I mean, what an acronym. I mean, that is so sophomoric, swell. It's kind of weird. But let's see what we can find out about this news. I had an article somewhere. So what we'll do, let's see, the first thing we'll do is we'll take a look. I mean, I guess the big news right now is where Bitcoin is. And so I got to get organized here a little bit. We'll share this screen. All right. So this is a daily chart of Bitcoin. You can see that we've now appear to be correcting or reversing from the bull run that we had, the completely manufactured bull run. It's the way I see it. All right, there's a comment here. Ed French says, "Good morning. The separation of Bitcoin and XRP has begun. Thoughts?" Well, when you say the separation, I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, but maybe there's something else that I don't know. So please feel free to interject that. But as we can see clearly, Bitcoin is on a corrective move. I believe that it will hit, once it hits 7,400 or below, it's going to fall into this deep, deep well here. And then once that happens, this deep, deep well right here. So you're going to move this out of the way. Yeah, this deep, deep well right here. once we move into that territory, I see it a slippery slope all the way down to about 6,700. And to retest the breakout point, which was the neckline of this inverse head and shoulder. Now, a lot of you may be looking at or listening to me and saying, but Ernie, you don't believe in technical analysis. Well, that's not necessarily true. If you've really listened to what I say, I believe in patterns that have a highly statistically significant history. So if those patterns actually have a highly statistically significant history, it would be foolish not to pay attention to them. So I pay attention to them. Now, does a inverse head and shoulders have that kind of history? Not necessarily. It falls just this short of it. Well, you didn't see me when I said just this short. What did I do? What I did was I said just this short. It has about a 62% probability of fulfilling its what most people think is its destiny, and that's as a reversal pattern. The rest of the time, and actually the thing that actually produces the greatest potential return is as a continuation pattern. Most head and shoulders end up being a continuation pattern. Some may produce in the long term I guess you could call a pullback in the major trend, but most of them end up being a continuation pattern. So typically what may happen, for instance, in this case, we're looking for it to come down and test that neckline at about, let's see, that looks about 6,700. And it'll slide through the big volume well. I got to show that again. Should be an easier way to do this. But not bad. All right, so we see the big volume well. If it comes below this area here, 63.50, 64, I see it sliding down very, very quickly down to here. Then testing this neckline. The neckline is approximately right here. Let's turn that white so it's easier to see. All right, so there's the neckline. We need to add an arrow here. It looks like we're going down to here. I give this about a 90% probability of reaching down there. Just so you can see that I'm not making all this crap up, I do have a picture on another show. See if I can find it, that I took this morning. See if I can locate it for you. And it shows you my projection. I actually drew this all out well in advance. Yeah, that's it. All right, so now I need to go back, stop this. And we'll look at the screen, so that might be a little bit easier to digest. All right, so I do a show on every day on another network on Twitch, and this bright arrow line. See, these are all the probabilities that I've mapped out as we were going along, and this bright line here is the most probable path that I've picked out. Now, I drew all these lines well in advance. And as you can see, I thought that this last leg up was going to be a relatively low probability. But once it did, I thought that it would move down with a very high probability, and it did. Now I have additional speculations here that we may move up. That's about a 10% probability versus a 90% probability of moving through here. Of course, this is conditional that we move through that 7,400 level. All right, let's see the comments. $415 million sell wall at 8,020 on OKEX futures because of unfilled liquidation from that whale. Unfilled liquidate. I don't know. That's just. I don't really put a lot of weight on sell walls. All they are bait for people. Insurance fund can't cover it. Maybe you have some point there. I don't know. I really don't know. And I don't particularly go by that. It would seem that SBI is stress testing systems with X-Rapid. Yen has not been visible for 18 or more hours. Not sure what that means. No, it's real. Look, I'm not discounting whether it's real or not. I know that the actual orders are real. Whether or not it's what induced the sell-off, that I'm suspect of. I mean, the Bitcoin was going to go down, period. That's all there was to it, regardless of whether or not there was a sell wall there. All right, let's move this out of here. And let's take a look and look up Bill Clinton. And the Ripple story. Ripple booked Bill Clinton for a speech, and Twitter won't shut up about it. I did not have monetary relations with that relations. Or with that crypto. Yeah, it causes ridicule. Gee, I wonder why. Is Bill Clinton investing in Ripple? No, I'm sure that they're paying him a handsome sum. A keynote. What the hell does he know about crypto? That's what I'd like to know. Well, I know what he does know about. He knows a lot about how to defraud people and scam countries and nations. He's an expert at that. So now he has a multi-billion-dollar company behind him. Let's see what they have to say about Crooked Bill. TNW. That's an interesting graphic there. All right. Got to go back to the share that. Make this a little bit bigger. Yeah, I don't get the graphic. So it seems Ripple, XRP, is really into celebs. Earlier today, the company announced former U.S. President Bill Clinton. I mean, man, now this, if there was anything that brought shame and cheapness and depravity to the presidency and former presidents, this is it. Absolutely. He'll be speaking at its annual Swell conference, but it appears the cryptocurrency community on Twitter is not all that impressed. I'm certainly not. Just what Clinton has to do with cryptocurrencies and blockchains is blockchain tech is not immediately clear. No, come on. For Christ's sake, it's exactly clear. It's all about the money. He wants to extort billions. He sees billions of dollars, and he's desperate because now the Clinton Foundation is basically defunct. But apparently, it is enough of a reason to start plastering his face all over social media. The keynote advertised as a conversation with Bill Clinton. I mean, I want to see that so much and see what he has actually to say about crypto. Will take place in San Francisco. San Francisco, the city of poop. Why do I call San Francisco the smelliest city in the United States? The city that has literally built an iPhone app to tell you places to avoid because of excess poop in the street. That's absolutely true. San Francisco, where I believe now the homeless population is starting to challenge the indigenous population. San Francisco, yes. I wonder if the little app, the poop app, is going to spot, or center in on wherever Bill Clinton is, because I'm absolutely sure that the homeless will start congregating around that area, looking for a free handout. But instead of rushing to book their ticket to the Clinton keynote, crypto enthusiasts on Twitter practically turned the upcoming event into a Photoshop battle. I know, I wish I had gotten involved with it earlier. Since the Clinton news broke, crypto Twitter has been flushed with doctored images replacing the former president with a series of questionable celebs. Yeah, okay, Bill Cosby, that's kind of cool. Kim Jong-un. Well, Bob Marley's dead, man. The fuck? And fictional characters. Also, another fictional character, Satoshi. I am not a scammer. See, in crypto world, also in Democrat world, and from a political point, whatever they say they are not, or that this is what they're doing, you can guarantee it's the exact opposite. So when a scammer says they're not a scammer, you can be sure that they are the ones that are the scammers. Ernie, volume profile only tells you what price levels are significantly likely, says nothing about direction. Isn't there a big need for some approach besides gut feeling? This is not gut feeling at all. I do, and I've said this many times, that all my analysis is 80% fundamentals and 20% technical. I do a rather comprehensive fundamental analysis to build up a narrative that tells me whether or not the trend is up or down, and and that's both short-term, medium-term, and long-term. Then I apply that fundamental analysis to my primary trading direction, and so I only trade with the trend. I mean, I've been saying this all along. This is not a gut feeling. I have talked about since October about this. The move of Bitcoin, the involvement of the CME and futures, and how they would, how Bitcoin would react to it. I was spot on there. And I talked about every single move on the way down. So now I was fooled on April 12th with the vast injection of whale money. And, but, I accepted it, and then once that pump was complete, I went right back to my strategy, my analysis, the fundamental analysis. The narrative had not changed, and my strategy since then has been to short every rally, and it has been extremely successful, even with this latest pump. All right, so hopefully you accept that. So XRapid uses XRP exclusively. Okay, so am I supposed to be impressed by this? Google OKEX liquidation. All right, whatever. He knows about as much as everyone else. Nothing. Yep, I know nothing. In the South, they call Billary Slick Willie. Well, we've been calling him Slick Willie for, oh my God, before he was president, quite frankly. Knew about him well before that. He and Al Gore claimed credit for the internet. No, actually, only Al Gore claims credit for the internet. And we'll probably tout the next gen of the web or something. Love the diversify of San Francisco. You mean diversity, I guess. Yeah, oh, you corrected it. Diversity. Bill is a fraud. Well, that goes without saying. Decentralized app called Shitcoin will be millionaires. Well, thank you, Aris. Ernie, you are the best. All right. For what it's worth, this is hardly the first time Ripple has tapped a high-profile figure to headline its events. Not so long ago, yes, Snoop Dogg. I knew this Snoop Dogg was involved in this. What a Fitting following after Snoop Dogg, Bill Clinton, the first black president. That's actually he literally coined himself that, the first black president. Of an invite-only Ripple event for charity. I can't imagine how much charity is going on there. Of course, the Clinton Foundation, quote, is a charitable organization. And had nothing to do with cryptocurrencies, and apparently he didn't even get paid for XRP. That was Snoop Dogg. I'll buy that. More recently, the company revealed it is getting, I love this, it is getting in bed with Madonna. Ripple is matching all, they're going after all the hyper-partisan celebrities. Have you noticed this? Ripple is matching all donations made from Madonna's 60th birthday. Man, she looks horrible for 60, by the way. With all proceeds going to the children of Malawi. Why isn't it going to Haiti where, I'm sorry, was it Haiti? Where the Clintons totally decimated them? 60 with all proceeds going to Malawi. CoinDesk reports that the campaign had raised $26,000 so far. $26,000? And a target of $60,000 for Madonna, her birthday. That's it. That's all he could muster up with this multi-billion dollar company. Man, that's pocket change. It should be pocket change for Bill. All right. Alex says, back to the fundamental analysis. If it's 80% of your view, why do we spend all of our time on volume profile if it's only 20%? Because the narrative is already there. Then volume profile will tell us not where price is going, but how price is likely to behave as it's going. All right? I mean, that's why. We've already made the analysis. Now we have to analyze price as it's going. And as you know, price doesn't always just go down in a straight line. It can't. So we have to use the market structure to give us our best probabilities of where price may go. Why don't the whales let Bitcoin go down? Well, most of the whales are involved in a, let's see, let's change this back to me. Yeah, so the whales are, I think, generally involved in coordinated pump and dump schemes, and they're doing whatever they can to make the most out of this downturn. You have to also remember that a lot of the whales have also shorted futures. And so they're using an arbitrage between futures and also Bitcoin to do what they can to pump, dump, rinse, repeat, accumulate more coin at lower prices. All right, Alex goes on. What goes into the fundamentals? I don't remember a show where you outline the process. Would be interesting in my opinion. I don't think I have actually done a show on the fundamentals, but maybe I have. But I have talked about it extensively. I mean, this is not rocket science. You know, basically what it comes down to in the big picture is that no new money coming into Bitcoin, no new nodes being created, or relatively so, no new network growth effect. So with the lack of expansion, you have contraction. So from a high level point of view, that is what the fundamental analysis points to. The other thing is that the market itself is quite weak, and the use cases for most of these cryptos, virtually all of the cryptos, and Bitcoin has not really panned out, and the overall market, the bigger market, is simply not ready to be disrupted in this way. And so that is another very significant factor. There's going to have to be some kind of sea change, educational change, or acceptance by a much wider audience. Right now, the overall sentiment from the majority of the population of the world is extremely negative on Bitcoin. It is not positive. Is it possible to profit from the whale's rotation into other coins? Yeah, I think it is, actually. I think it is. And we've seen the rotation from altcoins to Bitcoin and then Bitcoin to altcoins and so forth. And right now it is currently into Bitcoin. And the reason for that is this new spate of ETFs that have been announced. And so they're trying to play a kind of buy the rumor, sell the news type of pump. So they're using all of that to help fuel some of the pumps that they're doing. Now, I think that they were really counting on at least something happening in August. Actually, they're not really counting on it. They're just playing on that news cycle that the SEC might do something. So they've pumped it up. That didn't really pan out. We do have, I think it's in mid-August or September, maybe the CBOE is going to announce, or the SEC is going to announce their disposition on the CBOE ETF. And then again, the Direxion one back in September or October. I think it's October, but they've pushed it off. But the pattern for the SEC has been basically to push it down the road and then deny it. That is the pattern. Ernie, hated you from day one. I knew everything, but you are reeling me in. Keep up the good work. Well, thanks, David. Keep educating us. You know, all I do is use critical thinking. And I'm going to talk about that in a great deal in the future in some of my videos and maybe some on this show. But it is so important that we embrace critical thinking, be skeptics. You know, being skeptical and having critical thinking, what does that ultimately mean? That means that we are critical of the way we think, right? We are skeptical of every bit of piece of information that we see. We look at the process, we look at the data, we look at the probabilities, and then we question them. And we use things like logic and logic fallacies and reason to figure out whether or not something has a high probability of being the truth. With that, you know, we're going to be able to build a better view of where what is possible, what is not. Now, that does not necessarily mean that, you know, that will enlighten you to everything, but it allows you to be prepared for being wrong, first of all, or seeing through some people that may appear at first to have good intent. But be skeptical of everything. Having a critical mind is absolutely essential, and it's a skill. It really is a skill that you need to practice, and it's a skill that really isn't taught or practiced in most schools these days. They more or less go on feelings and hyperbolics. So I can see why millennials are kind of taken back, and you know, this is not or sucked in to this whole Bitcoin and crypto phenomenon. And I'll have to admit in the beginning that I was kind of sucked in too in the fever at first, early last summer. And because, you know, from a technological point of view, and I happen to be a long-term technologist, as many of you know, got about 40 years of experience in technology and finance at the highest levels. From a technology point of view, it looked very, very compelling, and the use cases seemed to make sense. But then when I sat back and started thinking about the actual adoption that would be necessary, the disruptive nature, and the decision-making process that enterprises would have to use to change their business models, to disrupt the culture that has been built up, for society as a whole to kind of embrace decentralized economies. While I think that in the future, that is a really good idea, sometime in the future, we're not anywhere close to that. Nowhere close. Nothing. But what most people got sucked into was this incredible growth in this industry and the potential to make a lot of money. And once they see that, man, the FOMO starts emerging, and they just throw crap to the wall and they say, man, I'm going to jump on that gravy train. When did I first hear about Bitcoin? I would say 2010. I think it was 2010, 2011 that someone actually paid me in Bitcoin for a small service. And at that time, it was a significant amount of Bitcoin. Unfortunately, I didn't think much of it, and I've lost it. So I've known about Bitcoin almost from the very beginning. But when did I know about like the technology behind Bitcoin? I've been working with this technology since the 70s, the late 70s, in one-way hashes and cryptography. So that's not, and also digital money has been something that we've been playing around with for a long, long time. QR code is huge in China. Yeah, I've watched some very interesting videos on that and how virtually everybody does everything from their phone using QR code. Very interesting. Also, peer-to-peer transfer of value and paying for everything, services, bills, everything. I was working in Hong Kong and could see that they are essentially already a cashless society, from hot dog vendors to the shopping malls. That's true. David says, always been a risk taker, some good, some bad, and reaching 50, taking this slowly. Yep, I've passed the 50 mark. Ernie, you are certainly a critical thinker in crypto, but you're rather uncritical about Trump. Surely he must have one policy you don't love. Of course, there's lots of things that I don't like, and I'm not going to turn this into a political conversation. But what I like about Trump, it has nothing to do with Republican or Democrat. It has everything to do with establishment against non-establishment and breaking the back of the globalists. And quite frankly, I like a lot of Trump's policies. I'm questionable about a lot of his tactics, although many of them seem to be working. His ego and his arrogance kind of irk me, but he gets the job done. So for now, he is the white knight against all the evil that's in the world on both left and right. And so when you got someone like that, regardless of their faults, you need to back them, because he has one thing in mind, one goal in mind, and I truly believe this, and that's to make America great, and in turn make everybody within America great. He wants people to succeed. I don't believe the politicians want us to succeed. All right, enough with politics. David Borer, me too. It's amazing what happens when you actually listen to what he's saying. Hey, Ernie, did you think that XRapid will take XRP to the moon when it is initiated? No, I think it's bullshit. Can you talk about greed in Bitcoin and the horrible side effects? Well, it's not just Bitcoin. It's virtually any new thing that becomes the de rigueur, the new thing, the new thing that's going to take us to the moon. The quick get rich quick. It's a very alluring. But I think a lot of people have seen through it, and they understand it for what it is. That what really exposed it were all the scammers and frauds and Ponzi schemes and pyramids that came out almost immediately. Like I don't know, they were just like leeches that just pounced out of the water and just grabbed hold. And unfortunately, a lot of them made a lot of money, and they still have that money. And it's going to take a long time before we, pull those leeches off, because they've got a nice big hole, a good chunk. They've got hold of a big chunk of flesh, and they're just sucking the blood out of a lot of people. So it's going to take a little while to shake them free. Why will people stop using Google Apple Pay to use the slower and rarely acceptable Bitcoin? It's a good question. I don't believe that Bitcoin really has that much utility. I accept it for payment, by the way, on my courses and also with my coaching. But when I get it, the very first thing I do is I try to convert it right back to USD so that I can actually use it. Hey, Ernie, do you think? Okay. Oh, you mean like on another planet? I didn't read the sarcasm in the first statement. Sorry about that. Ernie, many have made a lot of money. For those of us that bought in 3 years ago, I have no doubt about that. Let me tell you something. There were many people that made tons of money with Bernie Madoff too. Just think about that. All right. Trump equals business, bottom line. Well, I think that we really needed a real, true businessman, someone who was apolitical, that didn't fall into this PC crap and this virtue signaling. And man, it has destroyed the minds of most people. It has turned them into mush. They're not free thinkers anymore. And we needed Trump in order to break that stranglehold. And also expose the media for what they are. That's a big one. He's an idiot socially, but brilliant versus the establishment. Yeah, I agree with that. Although, actually, I don't agree with that. I think he's an idiot when it comes to, what is the word? Couth. But socially, actually, he's probably the most brilliant social architect ever. I cannot think of a single person that is able to drum up social attention and move it in his direction better than any. I can't think of anybody. Please try to, please come back with that. I don't know of anybody that can, move opinion as well as he can. Do you believe in XRP at all? Will it ever reach ATH again an all-time high in your opinion? No. And I've talked about this a great deal, and you've probably missed this talk. But you should know that being involved in technology and technology management and providing advice for big companies from Fortune 5s and down, I've dealt with all the biggest banks, run projects with them alongside with companies like IBM, Global Services, and so forth. I was chief architect with Sun Microsystems, by the way, and dealt directly with banks and implementation of systems like SWIFT, for instance, doing international payment and that sort of thing. And I understand exactly how these banks work, the type of relationships that are in place. I also understand the how antiquated SWIFT is, and they are looking for a new system per se, but they're not willing to just change like that, and it will never happen in a bank. In fact, most banks are still using the same mainframes that they've been using for 30 years, and making that switch over is not easy, both internally from a political and also from a practical point of view, because it's extremely expensive. But it's happening. And in fact, that was part of our biggest challenge when I was with Sun, was moving in these new application servers that were based on Java and replacing or working alongside or slowly seeping off functionality off of these mainframes. But even bigger than that is the fact that SWIFT, you got to think about these numbers. SWIFT has approximately almost 12,000 banks that system works under. They've been working under it for nearly 50 years. Again, antiquated, lousy, but it's their system. It works. They're trying to update it every day through this slow attrition. And also, they're also introducing their own crypto projects, SWIFT that is. So they basically have a lock hold on all interbank international transfers. Now that business, SWIFT, their total revenue for 2017 was $700 million. All right, now think about that. Total revenue, $700 million. They owned all the relationships, working directly with IBM, including Stellar, and all the banks, 12,000 of them. And they have revenue that they generated of $700 million, less than $1 billion, $750 million. Yet XRP, Ripple, comes onto the scene purportedly to take hold of that market. All right. They managed to get about 100 proof of concepts or pet projects to explore it. About 100 banks, some big, some small. 100. Didn't go anywhere with it. Yet they reached an evaluation of $108 billion for a total market of $700 million. Tell me where that makes sense. Doesn't. I'm telling you right now, they have zero chance of infiltrating that market, unless, maybe I suppose they could just buy Swift and then, offer them like $5 billion or something stupid like that. But that doesn't seem likely. So hopefully that answers your question. Why do we need Bitcoin or QR if QR code that is free is already secure? I don't know what the system is behind the QR code. There's obviously an infrastructure behind that that's way more than what is behind the scenes, more than what you see. It's QR code is nothing more than a standard for reading barcode in a box. That's all it is. Bitcoin price forecast, the system behind it is what's interesting, and the interfaces it has with your bank and payment systems and so forth. Bitcoin price forecast 2 years forward. I've already said that I think, and I've said this about 4 or 5 months ago, that I believe that Bitcoin is going to continue to move sideways in a kind of bear market, probably range somewhere between 4,000 and 9,000 in general, but slowly degrading until perhaps, and now we're probably a half year into it, so maybe another year and a half, until it finds another bubble or the technology finds new acceptance in industry or whatever. Now, maybe Hashgraph might have a play in that. As a matter of fact, Hashgraph just sent out some news yesterday and today about some of their developments, and I've been following that. And I encourage you to take a look at Hedera and Hashgraph and where they are. They will be offering an ICO for accredited investors very soon. Social retard in the PC culture, not how he does business. He is brilliant in that social culture. Well, social retard, he completely rejects the PC culture. The PC culture is actually, in my view, an anti-culture. It is meant to limit our speech. And therefore, once they can limit our speech and kind of capture it, they can start controlling us. And that's what it's all about. And then to marginalize us, and then to create identity politics around it. He has kind of broken through that and say, screw that. I can say whatever the hell I want. I appreciate your outlook, but how can XRP fail? What biz is the direct cause of failure in your eyes? I think I just explained that. They simply do not have the relationships, period. As simple as that. It'll take years. Now, I'm not saying they can't. What I'm saying is that it's highly unlikely that they're going to force the hand of 11,000, 12,000 banks, period, because of the internal problems that they have in actually switching over from a Swift system, which is largely mainframe based with all kinds of other systems built around it. And then just to turn that into something else ain't going to happen, Captain. Okay. I like the conspiracy. Trump was selected, not elected. Israeli controls USA. Swift being too big for XRP to infiltrate. No, it's the banks, not Swift, the banks. That points out a lot. You would think it would be much more. Where does Ethereum's $42 billion market cap make sense? That's the size of General Dynamics. I agree with that. Of all these different shitcoins that have evolved around the Ethereum platform, what has actually come up that is worth anything? Nothing. So they have a lot of businesses that I guess if you totaled all their accumulated assets might be worth, I don't know, a few $1 billion. Then a whole bunch of people, and I guess there's people power there. And maybe they are creating some interfaces and, both programmatic and, human interfaces that might be able to be reused for something. So maybe there is some kind of value there, but it's certainly not 42 billion. Yeah, Hedera Hashgraph just raised about $100 million. Well, raised it over the past few months, the past half year. I see a merger or a buyout of Swift. I, you know, it's possible. That doesn't necessarily mean that just because they buy Swift that it's going to change things. The banks the banks own the network. Swift doesn't own the network. Swift just provides a service that the banks use. I could see that also, David. XRP has a lot of resources already that might be a plan down the road. Yeah. Is Bitcoin Bob a Jewish Zionist? I don't know. It's a good question. Where is he? There he is. There's Bitcoin Bob right there. He will receive a beating from me later on. Yeah, I have really nothing else to say about Ripple. I doesn't impress me at all. They went after Western Union. That was a complete flop. Everything that they've touched has been a complete flop. Other than the fact they've been able to bilk billions of dollars out of millennial men. That they did very well. All right, so we're getting a little long in the tooth here. I'm trying to keep this show to somewhere between 45 minutes and 50 minutes. I'd like to learn more about this Bill Clinton Ripple meetup. I mean that sounds like for some really great content. To hear, there's got to be some other video up there where he's made a statement or something, to explain why he's doing this. Let's see. The universe is made up of protons, neutrons, and morons. Yep. That's a great one. Can I steal that? Do you think Swirlds, Hashgraph developer, will go public on NYSE or NASDAQ? Well, first of all, they have to develop some significant revenue before they go public. So we'll see. They're taking the slow, methodical approach. They're building out their governance model and making sure that none of the founders get vested until well into the future. So they are absolutely invested in the long-term goal. So I'm very interested in see what happens there. All right, what do you think of a project for future uses where they provide liquidity to decentralized exchanges, as that's a key factor that doesn't allow order matching currently? Thoughts? I have no thoughts on that. A project that provides liquidity to decentralized provides liquidity. In order to provide liquidity, you have to have people that are actually willing to participate in the market. So, I mean, liquidity just doesn't pop out of the air. All right. Let's see if let's move over to the web. I really want to see if we can find something on Bill Clinton. I need a video, Bill Clinton and Ripple. All right. CoinSquare lists XRP. Roger Ver owns up to XRP FUD. Bill Clinton swell. Northern. Let's put that up there too. Swell. Maybe that will. Is this an official thing here? Let's take a look at this. Oh, I don't want to listen to this. So this is a swell conference, I guess. I don't know what I'm looking at. President Bill Clinton, keynote swell 2018, Ripple October 1 and 2. Okay, so this has nothing to do with that. Well, I guess we'll just have to wait, you know? Well, I'll keep an eye on the Hydro protocol, but Peter Thiel. I don't know how you make liquidity out of nothing. Makes no sense. Okay, so now we're 50 minutes into this program. I want to tell now the next shows I may inject some traditional markets into this, talk about other things. If you have suggestions on what I can talk about, or if you'd like to see guests on this show, please let me know. And anything, really. And we'll take it from here. Let's see. Also, keep in mind that I provide coaching services for traders, and you can see that on traderoffutures.com. If you're interested, go there, fill out a coaching application, take a look at the materials, see if that's something that interests you. All right. Yeah, if you look into it, I'd look forward to your opinion. Okay, I will. Pork belly futures. Summarize your predictions. Well, I'm predicting Bitcoin goes down. I'm still predicting a crash in Bitcoin, quite frankly. You know, as I said, if we get down below that 7,400, I think we can make that next step down to 60, 67 or so. And once we get there, then we'll break through that neckline and perhaps go down further. It's going to take a little while, but, you know, we'll see. We'll see if I was right. I don't know. I made that call quite a while ago. I'm sure many of you are aware of it, and we'll see if it pans out. You know, the premise of why I made the call has shifted a little bit. Actually, it still existed, but they just kind of pushed the decision off. So I don't know how that affects the call itself, but then there have been other things that may take its place. So really don't know. But it looks weak right here. So we'll see. Can I talk about the real? Yes, I'm going to talk about the real financial markets. What I'll probably do is at least allot a third of the program to real financial markets. Maybe I'll start that way, or it depends on what the story is, or put it in the middle. I don't know. But if there is something that you want me to talk about in real financial markets, maybe an analysis of the major indexes, take a look at the Treasury and the Fed and what they're up to, interest rates. I want to talk about gold and silver, all of that. Now, I do have kind of an interesting chart that I just created this morning. I do track the yield curve, and so let me just show you this very quickly. I thought this is very interesting. All right, so this is a spreadsheet that I have that, actually, this is a picture of the spreadsheet that I have. Let's see if I can actually get the actual spreadsheet. We'll go back to the actual spreadsheet. So what I'm doing here is I'm plotting the yield curve. That's the 10 versus the 30. Actually, it's all the different uh, denominations of the yield curve, from the 2-year all the way up to the ultra 30, and their respective yields, and then plot them. Now in blue, what you see is what the yield curve was in February. Now a lot of people are talking about how the yield curve is flattening. Well, these are the numbers that I took just this morning in August, from August 1st, and that's in orange. And you'll see very, very clearly how the yield curve is kind of rotating, where short-term yields are rising while long-term yields are falling. And that's creating something called a flattening effect. We're in a flattening mode with the yield curve. And the problem with that is that if this is allowed to continue, or if it becomes inverted, where the short-term yields become higher than the long-term yields, in other words, this end ends up way up here. Let's see. This end right here ends up way up here somewhere, and we have an inverted yield curve. Now, it's not immediately a problem, but it usually portends in the near future a downturn in the economy. Now, what we're hoping for is that long-term rates start rising as well. And that won't happen until the economy in general starts developing more and more confidence, and they are, develop more and more confidence in the long-term viability of value. All right, so there's your injection of traditional markets right now, for now. Yes, yield curve is flattening due to higher key interest rates, but also due to the high amount of short-term debt issuance and to the needless tax cuts. I don't say the tax cuts are needless. As a matter of fact, I think they're very necessary. Those tax cuts are going to actually fuel future growth. So anyways, that's what we have. Thank you very much. I'm going to cut it short right here. I really appreciate everybody participating in this. Please give this video a thumbs up. All right, and that will help share it out there. Also, share it with your friends. Tell them about it. I want to try to build up this audience. And if you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do that. I appreciate it all. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next video.